Okay, before we get into this, I need you to understand something. This is still California we're talking about. The same state where a 900 square foot bungalow in Pasadena just sold for $1.1 million. The same state where people are leaving in record numbers because they literally cannot afford to stay. And yet, and this is the part that genuinely stopped me in my tracks, I'm looking at a 4-bedroom house in Lancaster, California, with a 3-car garage, a backyard big enough to actually use, and a neighborhood that looks like it belongs in a real estate magazine. And the asking price? $299,000. I had to sit with that for a second. Because Lancaster is not some remote mountain town. It's not 3 hours from civilization. It's in Los Angeles County, the same county. The county where the median home price is somewhere around $750,000, depending on the month and whoever's tracking it. And somehow, right there inside that county line, there are houses, real houses, move-in ready houses, houses with actual square footage and actual yards selling for prices that feel like they belong in a different era. So that's what we're doing today. We're going through some of the most confusing real estate listings I could find in Lancaster, and we're going to try to make sense of how this is even possible. Let's start there. That first house, the one that made me look twice. It's on a quiet street in a residential part of Lancaster, the kind of street where people have their trash cans rolled in by noon and somebody's always mowing a lawn. The house itself is a single story, built in the late 90s, so it's got that clean suburban structure, nothing too flashy, nothing falling apart. 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, about 1,800 square feet. The kitchen has been updated, the floors look good, there's a covered patio out back, and enough yard space that you could actually have people over without everyone standing on top of each other. Now here's where it gets interesting. That house, with all of that, is listed at $289,000. If you took that exact floor plan, that exact square footage, and dropped it into Burbank, which is maybe 45 minutes south depending on traffic, you'd be looking at somewhere between $850,000 and $1 million easy. Same general region, same state, completely different universe in terms of price. And the question that keeps coming up when I look at Lancaster listings is whether this is an anomaly or whether there's an actual pattern here. Spoiler, there's a pattern, and it gets stranger the more you look at it. Moving on to the next one, because this one actually made me do a double take. There's a 2-story house in a newer Lancaster neighborhood, the kind of subdivision where the streets curve slightly and there are HOA rules about what color you can paint your fence. You know the type. It was built in 2006, which means it's not brand new, but it's also not old enough to have any serious structural concerns. It's got 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a loft area upstairs, and a 3-car attached garage. The interior square footage is just over 2,800 feet. The photos show vaulted ceilings in the living room, a big open kitchen with dark granite counters, and a master bedroom suite that takes up the entire back corner of the second floor. The list price is $379,000. Let me put that in context. The average price per square foot on this house works out to somewhere around $135. In Los Angeles proper, you'd be lucky to find something at $600 per square foot in most neighborhoods, and that's before you account for older construction, smaller lots, no garage. This house has a 3-car garage. In Los Angeles, a 3-car garage might genuinely add $200,000 to the value of a property just because parking is treated like a luxury good. Here, it's just included. What I find interesting about this one isn't just the price, it's the condition. Because sometimes when you see numbers like this, you brace yourself for the listing photos. You expect the kitchen from 1987 or the carpet that's been through some things. But this house looks genuinely nice. Not flipped and rushed nice, just well-maintained, well-kept, lived in by people who cared kind of nice. And it's sitting there at $379,000 like that's a completely reasonable number, which compared to the rest of California is almost offensive. Now, let's slow down for a second because I want to talk about what Lancaster actually is, not because you need a geography lesson, but because I think it changes how you interpret these prices. Lancaster is in the Antelope Valley, which sits at about 2,300 feet elevation in the high desert just north of the San Gabriel Mountains. It's roughly 70 miles from downtown Los Angeles, though that number is a bit misleading because the drive through the Antelope Freeway and the Angeles Crest Corridor can stretch depending on conditions. The city itself has about 170,000 people. It's not small. It's got a downtown, a performing arts center, a regional airport, a hospital system, big box stores, the whole infrastructure of a real city. What it doesn't have is the coastal weather, the walkability of a denser urban core, or the proximity to the beach that tends to act as a gravitational force on California real estate. And that's really the heart of the price gap. California's housing market isn't just expensive, it's expensive in specific places for specific reasons, and distance from those reasons creates these pockets where you suddenly have real estate that behaves completely differently. Lancaster is one of those pockets, but the degree to which prices diverge from the rest of the county is still genuinely surprising when you see it laid out listing by listing. Let's get into house number 3, because this one has a detail that I think captures the absurdity of it. It's a 4-bedroom, 2.5-bath home in a well-established Lancaster neighborhood. Mature trees lining the street, good-sized lots throughout the block. The house is about 2,100 square feet and was built in 1989, so it's from that era where builders weren't shy about square footage or room count. The interior is clean, updated bathrooms, a renovated kitchen, newer appliances. The backyard is the part that got me. There's a pool. Not a small splash pool, an actual in-ground pool with a deck around it and what looks like a covered patio area for seating. In the listing photos, the afternoon light hits it in a way that makes it look like something out of a lifestyle magazine. It's the kind of backyard you'd use, constantly. That house, with all of that, in a real neighborhood in Los Angeles County, is listed at $335,000. A pool installation alone in California typically runs between $60,000 and $100,000 depending on size and features. So you're essentially getting the house plus a fully built pool for what would buy you a studio condo in the valley without parking. It's one of those comparisons where the math just stops working if you try to apply it to other parts of the state. And here's the thing that doesn't get talked about enough. Pools in hot and dry climates like the high desert aren't a luxury in the way they are in coastal areas. In Lancaster, summer temperatures regularly push past 100 degrees. A backyard pool is much closer to a necessity than a status symbol. So the value argument here isn't just about what it costs to build, it's about what it actually contributes to daily life in that climate. Alright, I want to shift gears slightly because so far everything we've looked at has been fairly standard suburban fare. Nice houses, good condition, reasonable square footage. But what happens when you start looking at larger properties? Because Lancaster's high desert location doesn't just affect neighborhood character, it also affects lot sizes in a pretty significant way. This next listing involves a house that comes with land, not a big yard, land. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, single-story, about 1,600 square feet, built in the early 2000s. The house itself is fine, not spectacular, but solid. Updated kitchen, tile floors throughout, a covered porch, but the lot it sits on is just under an acre. In a place like this, that means genuine space, room for a workshop, a garden, outbuildings, animals if that's your thing, RV parking if it's not, the kind of land that in other states would already be pushing this into a premium listing. In Lancaster, that property is on the market for $319,000. Now think about what an acre of land costs in Southern California if you try to buy it anywhere near the coast or even in the inland valleys. Depending on where exactly you're looking, raw land, not a house, just land, can run $500,000 to several million. The idea that you can get a livable, updated house sitting on nearly an acre for $319,000 anywhere in California feels like a data error the first time you see it. But this is Lancaster's other card. It's high desert, it's spread out, and land here isn't managed as a finite premium commodity in the same way. There's more of it, which means you can still find properties with genuine room to breathe at prices that simply don't exist in the rest of the region. Let's keep going, because we're not even close to the most extreme example yet. Number 5 is a newer construction home, and I want to be clear about what I mean by newer. This house was built in 2019, which means it was built with modern building codes, modern insulation standards, modern electrical and plumbing systems. It's not a flipped older home. It's not a house that looks new because someone painted the cabinets. It was built from the ground up 7 years ago. 4 bedrooms, 3 full bathrooms, roughly 2,400 square feet. Open floor plan with a large kitchen island. The living areas flow together in a way that older California homes from the 70s and 80s typically don't. The master bathroom has a soaking tub and a separate walk-in shower. There's a 2-car garage. The backyard is clean and fenced with plenty of room to work with. Listed at $415,000. For a 7-year-old house in Los Angeles County, that number feels wrong. Not wrong like there's a catch, just wrong like it doesn't fit the mental model you have of what California homes cost. If you told someone unfamiliar with Lancaster that you found a 2019 built 4-bedroom in LA County for $415,000, they'd think you were confused about the location or leaving something important out. And in a way, that's what's strange about Lancaster's real estate market. It's not that the houses are bad. It's not that the county is misrepresenting something. The houses are exactly what they appear to be. The location is exactly what it says. It's just that the price doesn't match what the rest of the region has conditioned people to expect. Here's where things start to shift, because the next house is one I've been sitting on for a few minutes now, trying to figure out how to explain it without just saying "this makes no sense" repeatedly. It's a 5-bedroom home. 5 bedrooms in a planned community in Lancaster with an HOA, maintained common areas, a community pool, and a park nearby. The house is 2 stories, just over 3,000 square feet, built in 2004. It's got a formal dining room, a loft space, a downstairs bedroom for guests or multi-generational living, and an upstairs master suite that runs the full width of the house. The kitchen is large and opens directly to the family room in a layout that was designed to function. The list price is $449,000. That's $149 per square foot for a 5-bedroom house in a maintained community in California. I want to just let that sit there for a second, because there are parking spaces in Los Angeles that sell for $50,000 to $100,000. Individual parking spaces, not houses, not rooms, spots to park a car. And right there, in the same county, 70 miles north, you can buy 3,000 square feet of actual house with 5 bedrooms and community amenities for under $450,000. The contrast is so stark that it almost stops feeling real. But it is real. These are active listings or recently sold properties that reflect what actually happens in this market every day. Now, I want to bring up something that I think is worth pausing on, because one of the questions that naturally comes up when you're looking at a place with prices like this is, why? Why hasn't this gap closed? Why haven't people flooded into Lancaster and pushed prices up to something closer to the regional norm? And the honest answer is that some of that has happened. Lancaster's prices have gone up meaningfully over the last decade, particularly since 2020. The remote work shift made the Antelope Valley more attractive to people who could work from anywhere and didn't need to be in the office every day. But the gap remains enormous. And part of why the gap persists comes down to something that California real estate buyers are very specific about, and that's commute reality. The drive from Lancaster to downtown Los Angeles or the West Side is genuinely challenging. On a good day with no incidents, you're looking at 90 minutes or more. On a bad day, which is most days, that can become 2 hours each way. That's a 4-hour daily commitment if you're commuting 5 days a week. For a lot of buyers, no matter how good the house is, that calculus doesn't work. So Lancaster ends up serving a very specific subset of buyers: people who work locally in the Antelope Valley, people who have found remote-friendly careers, people who prioritize space over commute time, and increasingly, people who are priced out of everywhere else and are making an intentional decision to trade proximity for the ability to actually own something. And what they're getting in exchange is... Let's look at one more house to close this out, because I saved this one for a reason. This is a house in one of Lancaster's more established neighborhoods, not the newest development, not a subdivision built last year, but a street that's been there long enough to have shade trees and a settled feeling, the kind of block where neighbors know each other. The house is a single story, 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, about 1,900 square feet. It's been updated: kitchen, bathrooms, flooring, paint, the kind of renovation that someone did carefully and with attention to detail rather than in a rush to flip. There's a large covered patio in the backyard, the garage is finished, the landscaping in the front is maintained. It's listed at $298,000. And I think the reason this one hits differently from the others isn't just the price, it's that the house doesn't look like it belongs at that price. It looks like a house that someone would be proud of, the kind of place you'd host a holiday dinner or have the neighbors over for a cookout. It looks like a home in the fullest sense of that word. And in California, in 2025, in Los Angeles County, it's listed at $298,000. The comparison that keeps going through my head is this. The average down payment on a median-priced home in Los Angeles is somewhere around $150,000 to $200,000, depending on the neighborhood and the loan type. That's just the down payment, just the portion you hand over before the mortgage even starts. And that number is higher than the entire purchase price of some of what we've looked at today. That's the thing about Lancaster that I keep coming back to. It's not just that it's cheap by California standards, it's that it reframes the entire conversation about what home ownership actually requires. When people talk about affordability in California, they often talk about it as if it's a fixed, unavoidable reality, as if the only question is how much you're willing to sacrifice, or how long you're willing to wait, or how far you're willing to move. But Lancaster suggests that the geography of affordability within California is more varied than the conversation usually acknowledges. There are real trade-offs here: the heat, the commute, the distance from the coast, the desert climate that's beautiful in its own way but very different from the temperate zones that drive most of the state's real estate premiums. Those trade-offs are real, and they matter to different people in different ways. But so are the houses. And when you actually look at them, when you go through the listings and look at what you can get in Lancaster for $399,000 or $379,000 or $449,000, it's hard to look at the rest of California's housing market without some version of the same question coming back again and again. How is this the same state? Because it is. Same state, same county in some cases, same set of laws and building codes and disclosure requirements. Just a different location, a different climate, a different relationship to the things that California charges premiums for. And I don't think Lancaster is secretly perfect. I don't think the prices mean there's no reason to look carefully before buying. Every market has its own dynamics, and doing proper research on any property is just smart, full stop. But there's something genuinely interesting happening in the Antelope Valley that the bigger California housing conversation tends to overlook, and these listings are a window into it. A 4-bedroom house with a pool for $335,000, a 5-bedroom in a maintained community for $449,000, a 2019 built home in LA County for $415,000, a well-kept single story on a quiet street for $298,000. These aren't distressed properties or foreclosure fines or hidden catches in a listing description. They're just houses in California at prices that feel like they belong somewhere else entirely. And the fact that they exist at all is probably worth knowing about, whether you're buying, renting, or just watching California's housing market try to make sense of itself.